and a really warm welcome to this Q&A with ETS TOEFL. I'm Claire Gossage, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Srikant Gopal, Executive Director TOEFL based in the US, and Sandy Bhangal, Associate Director ETS Global, normally based in the UK, but dialing in today from Crete. So thank you for joining us, Sandy. Today, we are going to be talking about assessments. Obviously, a really critical part of the student journey, the focus of our event, and an area that has seen a really huge amount of innovation as a result of the pandemic. But there are a lot of options to choose from. So through our conversation today, we'll be learning about assessments offered by ETS TOEFL and how institutions can decide which ones are the best for them to use. We have 30 minutes. I have got some questions to pose initially. Please do use the chat function and the Q&A tab to ask your questions, and I will put those to Sandy and Srikant towards the end of our conversation. So, Sandy, I'm going to come to you first. Could you kick us off by telling us about the high-stake assessments that are developed that have been developed by ETS that can help universities in their recruitment process? And also what differentiates the TOEFL test from other English language tests when there are so many to choose from?
Certainly. So we have a number of assessments ranging from the traditional TOEFL IBT test that's taken at the test centre to the TOEFL IBT Home Edition test, and a number of others which we'll talk about shortly. Essentially, we're told by our clients that all of the TOEFL assessments really help them to continuously attract high caliber students. And we really believe by having a range of high quality options for our test takers that universities can be really confident that they're actually getting the scores from qualified students. And I guess one of the key drivers of satisfaction, again, we've heard directly from institutions globally, is that the TOEFL IBT test is really a true indicator of the skills that students really need to succeed in their courses. Personally, dealing with UK Irish universities, I'm told by admissions offices that TOEFL IBT can strongly predict the language proficiency skills that students really need to demonstrate when they're in a university environment, wherever that may be. In addition, institutions also feel that the TOEFL IBT is able to differentiate students for admissions decisions. And all of our clients, I truly believe, value the 100% nature of the test. And that really differentiates us from others, since the test content is really representative of what students will experience at any university, wherever they're studying. So it's important for students, of course, to progress and succeed in that environment. Equally for our clients to be able to retain the students. And your point about differentiation is a good question. And TOEFL is very different and unique from other assessments in the market. And it's really important for both the test taker as well as the university accepting an English language test score to understand these differences. So, for example, for TOEFL tests, they're created using human-centered processes throughout the whole life cycle of the test. So what I mean by that is from the questions that are written, and they're verified by assessment development colleagues who are experts. And all of the scores that we release are confirmed by human beings before they're actually released to the universities. And we also believe that AI really complements these processes that we have and really emphasizes the role humans play in this whole process. And again, this goes back to ensuring that our tests are continuously fair, valid, and reliable measures of proficiency, which is what our clients expect. And I guess the other differentiations are in terms of security protocols that we have in place.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, it's interesting. We've just come from a session on cybersecurity and remote delivery of learning. Could you tell me a bit more about what you do in that area in terms of security?
Yes, certainly. So since, I know that Srikant will elaborate on this shortly, but since the introduction of the Home Edition test and more recently Essentials, we ensure that all of our remote delivered tests, security protocols mirror those of a test centre. But obviously when you're delivering a test at home, we have online proctoring. Well, it's remote proctoring, but it is proctoring throughout the whole duration of the test. And we also rely on elements of AI as well. So that, again, we can ensure that the scores are valid, reliable, but also our clients can be confident. And so far, from the home edition scores that we've released in the market, universities are confident that the scores are are what they should be. They are reliable and they are a true indicator to how that student can perform.
Great, thank you. Like you say, we may come on to that in more detail slightly later, but we're at the early stages of finding out what changes have been happening at ETS as a result of COVID. And Srikant, I'd like to bring you in here. Could you tell us about what product changes in testing and assessments that you've made as a result of the pandemic, and how this has benefited students, particularly in India, which I know is a real country of focus for you at the moment?
Thank you, Claire, and it's really delighted to be here with all of you today. Um, the pandemic broke upon us around March of 2020, so we reacted really quickly. And we did two main things. First of all, we were able to, within 6 weeks, perfect and launch the same TOEFL IBT, but at home, that we now call the TOEFL IBT Home Edition. And we'll talk more about that, and I know Sandy touched upon that. But I want to spend a couple of minutes here talking about uh, what we did to sustain and preserve test center testing even during the pandemic. So, unlike some other tests, we actually never shut down testing nearly anywhere. Now, what we did was we took into account local regulations, health and safety considerations very, very rigorously, and we kept test center testing open wherever we could. But we introduced a lot of new health and safety regulations, as well as test taker health and safety features as well. Let me give you a few examples. So we allowed the use of masks for all test takers in our TOEFL IBD testing centers, including keeping the mask on for the speaking section. But in order to make sure that those speaking responses were being captured and processed accurately by our raters, we invested in technology so that people could safely wear a mask and have their responses evaluated and rated in exactly the same way. So that's one example. When test takers checked in into a test center, we waived some of the things we would normally do. For example, we would ask for a voice sample at check-in as part of our security measures. So we temporarily waived that just so that people didn't have to, speak in close proximity to a device or to other people. But we were able to find other ways to provide that security that was being used for. So those are just a couple of examples. And of course, we've come a long way since March 2020. We still have some of those uh, safety precautions in place, but I'm glad to say that we're starting to come out of that as countries start getting out of the pandemic. And we will continue to make sure that as we move into the next year and beyond, we are offering a range of choices to test takers, whether taking the test in a test center in a COVID environment, or indeed taking the test at home. And later on, as we'll discuss yet another way to take the TOEFL IBT in a secure and reliable way.
Thank you. And following up, how have those changes benefited students in India, in particular, and whether that's different in India than in other markets where you focus?
No, I think we have applied these changes globally, and I know that they have been appreciated, especially in India. I can share with you that this last year that we concluded, our last fiscal year, our test volume in India has been the highest it's been in many, many years. For example, our volumes in India are up nearly 50% over last year and 25% over the year before, which was before the pandemic. And that's an excellent illustration of how test takers and other stakeholders in India have responded to the things we've done to help people during the pandemic and beyond. So in India, for example, during COVID, at any given time, we had at least half our testing capacity open. Obviously, we launched the TOEFL IBT Home Edition in India early in April 2020. And we know that well over half Indian test takers are actually choosing the TOEFL IBT Home Edition. And it's become a permanent fixture, not only in our portfolio, but in the choices that our Indian students are making. So we're extremely delighted with how we've been able to serve students in India and their amazing response to it as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So going back to the IBT test, which was rolled back globally back in 2005, can you tell me which countries' scores for the IBT are now accepted in, and if that's changed since the pandemic? Yeah, if you can answer those first, that'd be great.
Certainly, certainly. Let me make some comments there, and I'll invite Sandy to add some additional comments. So here's the most important point I wanted to make, Claire. The TOEFL IBT test is accepted universally around the world. And what do I mean by that? So in the English-speaking countries, such as the United States, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand, obviously everything is taught in English. And so the TOEFL IBT is accepted everywhere by all universities, colleges, and institutions of higher education. When you look at countries that are not native English speaking, such as Germany, France, Japan, China, Korea, etc., with those universities and institutions that teach in English or have English programs or English taught degrees and so on, and if they require an English standardized test, then they always accept TOEFL IBT. So in the right where there is a context for an English standardized test, TOEFL IBT is always accepted. So that's why I like to say that we have universal acceptance where it matters. And so that's a great benefit to all the students and test takers who take it, because they can take the TOEFL IBT and go literally anywhere in the world that they want. And not only that, as Sandy had mentioned earlier on, because of the unique design and philosophy behind the TOEFL IBT test, in that it's the only English test that's actually 100% academic English and has been designed very, very specifically to meet the needs of higher education in an academic English-speaking environment. Obviously, many universities strongly prefer the TOEFL IBT as the best demonstration of a student's ability to succeed in an academic's English-speaking environments. And we see preferences in countries such as the US, in Canada, in France, and Germany for the TOEFL IBT compared to other English language tests. Sandy, would you like to add a few points?
I was just going echo to what you said. It is accepted widely in over 160 countries by over 11,000 odd universities, and that's because they have confidence in the TOEFL scores and are able to see students grow and progress within their universities. So whilst we've got that acceptance, the only thing I guess has changed since the pandemic is where students are essentially sending their test scores. And we've seen some kind of changes in recruitment trends. So for example, Srikant made reference to India and our volumes. For the UK, most certainly, we have seen more students than ever before use their TOEFL scores to make an application at a UK university. Equally, we also know that UK universities are verifying more and more TOEFL scores that are being sent from India. So we've seen that slight shift. Of course, Greater China and the other parts of the world, Brazil, for example, we see lots of TOEFL scores being sent to the US, to other English-speaking countries, but we have seen that slight shift in terms of Indian students choosing to apply to UK universities with their scores. And most of these actually, as Srikant mentioned earlier, no surprise, are actually TOEFL IBT Home Edition test scores.
Okay, I mean, I think that view you have on recruitment trends must be really fascinating to see all that going on behind the scenes. So I know there's been a new test released very recently in August 2021. So a new TOEFL test, which is called the Essentials test. Can you give us some background to why you launched it when you already have IBT, which, as you say, is very widely accepted around the world?
Absolutely, yeah. So the TOEFL IBT, as well as other ways to take TOEFL IBT, such as the TOEFL IBT Home Edition, that is our flagship product, and it is our gold standard assessment, and will always remain so. But we felt that the market needed a second product from us to meet some unique needs that nobody else was serving, and that's why we launched TOEFL Essentials. So let me explain what that unique space and need was that prompted us to launch this. TOEFL Essentials is a unique test in that it combines the quality that institutions want along with student friendliness, affordability, and access that students clearly value and need. But to put both those things together in one package, one test, nobody else had done that before. And that's why we launched TOEFL Essentials. Just to give you a few quick features about the TOEFL Essentials at a very high level. In a very simple way, it's about half the length of TOEFL IBT as well as other major established quality tests. Half the length. So it's about 90 minutes in length. And it's also about half or less than half the price. But it remains an equally valid, reliable, and fair test, just like the TOEFL IBT. So it's really quality, totally customized to meet student needs in terms of friendliness, affordability, and access. Now, we do have some very unique features on the TOEFL Essentials. For example, in addition to the 4 traditional sections, listening, reading, speaking, and writing, there's also a unique 5-minute personal video statement section where students record their responses to 2 questions, and that's video recorded and sent to institutions that they choose. So this allows students to showcase their unique personality to institutions, and for institutions to gain insights into student perspectives beyond the scores on the test itself. So it's a truly unique test, and here's what I would also say. Both the TOEFL IBT and TOEFL Essentials are valid, reliable, and fair measures of assessing someone's English proficiency. So both tests can get a student to their destination, but the way they do it is completely different. It's equivalent to whether you want to drive a Mercedes-Benz E-Series, which would be the TOEFL IBT, or do you want to drive a Toyota Camry? Both are quality experiences, but they're very different. So what the student will find on TOEFL Essentials is that there are many more questions, and the questions are shorter but faster moving. So it's a very energetic and dynamic experience compared to the TOEFL IBT, where the questions are longer and there's more time to immerse yourself in that experience. So some students will prefer one experience, some students will prefer another experience. So what we've done is we've created TOEFL Essentials to serve the needs of students who might prefer and benefit from a very, very different TOEFL test taking experience. But we also know that many of the students who take TOEFL IBT really prefer that experience and will not consider something like TOEFL Essentials. And indeed, one of our objectives was to serve many students in the English testing world who may have found, for example, their needs are not being met completely by TOEFL IBT, and we position Essentials to meet their needs as well.
So do you find that students need help deciding which test they should take? And also from an institutional point of view, for them to decide which ones they should accept from their students?
Yes. So what we've provided, Claire, is on our website, we have dealt extensively with how a student should think about which test to choose if they're looking at a TOEFL test. So we do have that guidance on our ets.org/TOEFL website. And once you drill down into the essentials section of it, and let me tell you, there's no clear answer. We've got about, I think, 8 or 10 different questions for the students to ask. And students could end up on either side of the coin, depending on their own preferences and their own testing style. That's the most important thing I want to emphasize. From an institution standpoint, what we've been communicating with our institutions, and this is how institutions are also responding, is that both tests are an essential part of an institution's TOEFL portfolio. In that, because the tests are very different and student experience on those tests is different, an institution that accepts both TOEFL IBT as well as TOEFL Essentials will find that they attract different kinds of students to apply to the institution, And so it helps students to widen their pool of qualified applicants. But whichever test their applicant chooses, they're always going to get a valid, reliable, and accurate assessment of their English proficiency. So we're very confident about that. And obviously, the test is very new. We launched it just 3 months ago. And so far, we've had several hundred institutions already around the world that have accepted as TOEFL Essentials, along with the TOEFL IBT, of course, which is accepted universally. And many more institutions are going through their process of learning more, asking questions, and embracing the test over a period of time.
Yeah. Are you finding it's been more popular in certain markets? So the take up of the Essentials test so far, from what you've seen?
Well, the response from test takers has been quite amazing. We launched it on August 21st, and so we've had, I think, about 7 or 8 administrations. So we've already had several thousands of test takers from around the world in over 150 countries take the test already. I mean, to give you a comparison, TOEFL IBT is actively tested every week in over 195 countries around the world. So with Essentials, we're getting very close to that number already in just a few months of administering the test.
Great, thank you. Now, we have got quite a few questions coming in from the audience and not loads of time, so I'm going to take one from Brenna May. You mentioned costs, Srikant, earlier, that the Essentials has a lower price point than the IBT. So Brenna asks, how do you respond to the newer English proficiency exams that are available at a much lower price point for students?
You know, it's an excellent question. And, as we all know from our lives, quality and costs go together. Right? I mean, when you look at a test like TOEFL IBT, I mean, it's built with the highest quality parameters in mind. And, we obviously charge a fair price to cover our costs when we administer the test. Now, with TOEFL Essentials, we've built in essentially the same hallmarks of quality as we built into the IBT. But we have chosen to offer it at a very, very competitive price at our own cost. So I just want to emphasize that TOEFL Essentials is an extremely high quality product. For example, in the TOEFL IBT Home Edition, as Sandy had mentioned earlier, we always use human beings to proctor the test. We don't believe that a test is secure unless human eyes are watching and monitoring a test taker. That's the TOEFL IBT Home Edition. With TOEFL Essentials, it's exactly the same construct. So with every TOEFL Essentials test, a human being is always there supervising the test taker. So it costs us the same amount of money, but we just end up charging a lot lower. And as Sandy mentioned, it's all the human-centered processes that feature how we develop the TOEFL IBT are exactly applied on TOEFL Essentials as well. Human beings write the test. The questions are qualified in the field with actual test takers. Human beings score the test. Human beings proctor the test. I would urge all our audience to consider other tests that are inexpensive out there that do not use these human-centered processes and that do not feature these quality hallmarks that we've built in the TOEFL Essentials. So
Great. Thank
at
you.
ETS and TOEFL, we would never compromise on quality, even if we would offer the product at a very affordable price.
Great, thank you. So I've got a question from Amy here. There was some frustration in India when IDP announced its acquisition of IELTS over concerns regarding separation of candidate data. Can you share a TOEFL perspective on the fallout? Have some agencies now promoted other exams more strategically?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to comment specifically on IELTS and IDP, obviously. But what I wanted to say here was that we obviously serve all our students and test takers in India, but we also greatly value all our stakeholders in India, and those being educational agents and consultants. So we don't have any conflict of interest. We are obviously on the side of our students, but as well as our stakeholders and influencers and agents and consultants in India. And we're very happy to be able to serve them through all the things we've mentioned, such as the TOEFL IBT test and test centers that are still going very strong, the IBT Home Edition. And I'm also happy to share that we just announced the launch of our TOEFL IBT Paper Edition. So this is the third and final way in which somebody can take the TOEFL IBT test. Yes, the TOEFL IBT Paper Edition is now available in India. It is a 4 skills test where people take the first 3 sections, reading, listening, and writing, on paper and pencil in a traditional test center. And then within the next 3 days after they finish that, they will take their speaking section at home with human proctored security, exactly like they do on the TOEFL IBT Home Edition. So we opened it up for registration on October 12th, and the first administration is on December 11th. And we have thus far announced the launch of this in India, the United States, Mexico, and Colombia in round 1. So we're delighted to offer our test takers in India and our influencers in India yet another option in which they can serve their students. And we think that compared to our competition, we have the most robust and fair options to serve our stakeholders.
Okay, fantastic. So a whole range going on. I'm going to take another couple of questions from the audience. Elise asks, do students need to do specific preparation courses for IBT or the Essentials tests? And if so, where can they do those? Are those widely available? I guess essentially also with the Essentials test being so new, how do students prepare for that?
Yes. So first of all, for the so in a way, the way we think about this is we have 2 broad products, right? We've got the TOEFL IBT portfolio of tests. That is the IBT traditional, IBT Home Edition, and IBT Paper Edition. And then we have the TOEFL Essentials, which is a completely new, different and new test. So the preparation for any of the TOEFL IBT tests is exactly the same. So whether you're taking the TOEFL IBT at home or in a test center or on paper and pencil, the preparation is exactly the same, and there are extensive free as well as paid preparation resources directly from ETS, including a free practice test. We've got a free practice test for the computer IBT, as well as a free practice test for the paper and pencil IBT as well, that is now available. TOEFL Essentials has its own set of unique preparation resources. We have 3 what we call 3 free practice tests for people to use and familiarize themselves with TOEFL Essentials. In addition, we actually have launched recently a whole MOOC on TOEFL Essentials. It's a whole course on getting familiar with the TOEFL Essentials in much more detail than the practice test as well. So we have those resources already available.
Can I just ask, how can people access the MOOC if they want to?
It's all, so if people go to ets.org/TOEFL and they go to either of the 2 test sections, they'll find all the links and resources right there. And
Great.
and if people have any questions, then we're happy to redirect them if they cannot find anything. We're also finding that more and more of our stakeholders and partners are jumping into this field and offering their own preparation courses and materials for TOEFL Essentials. Of course, for TOEFL IBT, there's already an extensive ecosystem over there.
Okay, great. So we are coming rapidly up to time. A quick question from Alejandro Perez. How can you showcase your personality in a test? What would you say to that?
Okay, I will. Sandy, do you want to take that, and I can chime in with some final thoughts from my side?
I was going to say it's not necessary to showcase one's personality in the test. It is simply getting through each of the sections and meeting the score requirements that set by the university you want to. Of course, we have several tips on each of our sections, and again, they are available on the website. But it is just ensuring that you are answering the question that's being posed and that you're clear and coherent in your responses.
Right, and so
Great.
exactly. So I think it's inherent in the test itself. But let me offer a couple of more perspectives. So when somebody chooses TOEFL IBT, they're also telegraphing who they are in choosing TOEFL IBT. TOEFL IBT is a 100% academic test, and in choosing a product like that over other tests that are not 100% academic, people are telegraphing to the admissions officers that they are ready and willing to do the tough work that is needed to score well on a test like TOEFL IBT. So that's now with TOEFL Essentials, because we have the personal video statement, we've given more opportunities for people to go beyond the scores and show a little bit more about themselves. And what I mean by that is the questions that are asked on the personal video statement section are not about English proficiency. It's about, what do you want to do in your education? Give us an opinion on something else. So it gives people an opportunity to...
Sorry to interrupt, Srikant, but we are at time, I'm afraid, so I'm going to have to cut you off there. If you are watching and you'd like to know more about ETS and their range of TOEFL tests, please do reach out to Sandy and Srikant on the event platform. Sandy is also on our Country Spotlight India panel this Thursday, so you will hear more from her then about what they are doing in India. Thank you so much, Srikant and Sandy, for joining me, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.